In today's video, I want to talk up more about Breath of the Wild 2. And we're going to be specifically talking about certain locations, gameplay, characters, particularly Ganon, and lore details that have been revealed on Breath of the Wild 2. All that's coming up. Hey, what's up YouTube fam? DF Edits here, and welcome to this week's video. Hey, if you are new, definitely consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell notification so you never miss a single video. We talk a lot about Zelda on this channel, so let's go ahead and dive into this week's video. So way back at E3 of 2019, we all know that Nintendo made the insane announcement that they would be releasing the sequel to Breath of the Wild 2. Now, as I said in the previous video, as far as the trailer, they haven't really showed us any kind of detail. Besides the trailer, that's really all the detail that we have gotten on the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, as far really what all is going to be in Breath of the Wild 2, including brand new characters, locations, new information about Ganon, and the lore behind this version of Hyrule really hasn't been elaborated on by Nintendo specifically, along with the release date of the game, which there's plenty of rumors about that as well. The very first topic that I would like to dive into with you guys, DFM, is details to the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, like we stated in the beginning of this video, there really isn't a lot of details as far as Nintendo throwing them out as us fans about the game. All we can really do is really speculate and create fan theories on the game, on what's going to be in the game, when it releases, and how much they're going to be actually carrying over from the very first Breath of the Wild game. Now, considering it took about 3 years between Breath of the Wild's announcement at E3 and its release in March of 2017, we can pretty much expect a similar release schedule to happen. That's kind of how Nintendo does things, especially like, for example, Pokemon games. They do it pretty much on schedule every year, unless Nintendo is only intending to build on what they created for the amazing story to Breath of the Wild. Now, the second topic I'd like to talk about is actually the sequel itself, the continuation of the story, Ganon, and the lore. Now, despite how little it's happened, the actual concept of the sequel to the Legend of Zelda game isn't actually unheard of. Now, there's been many games in the Legend of Zelda series that have actually been made and intended to be sequels to a game before them, such as the Oracle games, Zelda 2, Majora's Mask, and more. Now, while the Zelda timeline is so convoluted and non-sequential that Nintendo had to release an actual book, which we all know is the Hyrule Historia, for us to keep everything straight, Breath of the Wild 2 being a sequel is going to be extremely easy for us to follow as fans. At least we know from all of the theories, the details that Nintendo has given us up to this point, that the game is going to take place 5 years after the original Breath of the Wild. But otherwise, we really wouldn't know what's going on. Now, referring back to the teaser trailer shown at E3 of 2019, this trailer gave us at least some lore info into the backstory of the Breath of the Wild time period. Now, I'm going to be rolling some B-roll of the trailer, but the trailer shows Link and Zelda making their way deep beneath the Hyrule Castle, and while they're traversing through the Hyrule Castle undergrounds, they're passing graven images of Ganondorf as a conquering warlord, strange magic, and an odd-looking severed arm having impaled Ganondorf to a pedestal to keep him secure and in one place. There's a lot of theories going around, but this is probably what caused him to manifest as Calamity Ganon rather than an actual human being. Though what caused it and how it happened will hopefully be given more elaboration when Breath of the Wild 2 actually releases. So as far as the lore, what we do know from Breath of the Wild is that Ganon pretty much became Calamity Ganon when he was defeated hundreds of years before the very first Breath of the Wild game. That's where, all the divine beasts, the guardians, and the champion of Hyrule, Link's previous incarnation, helped to imprison Ganon. It's really exciting to me as a Zelda fan because we could potentially be facing Ganondorf at the height of his power, the strongest he has ever been, along with whatever thing that was sealing Ganon away to begin with. I think that's pretty exciting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, either way, the teaser trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 did show us that there's a few things that we actually didn't learn from Breath of the Wild, such as Ganondorf's past as a warlord and whatever arm has him pinned to his prison might have come from. Now, with the various theories and lore dumps we got in the previous game, which included a lot of information about the Sheikah and the flavor text on weapons, I'm kind of hoping that hopefully everything is going to be ramped up in the sequel. Now, as far as the gameplay and specifically the characters, the original Breath of the Wild's gameplay was quite the departure from the Zelda games that we grew up and loved and played as a kid, involving a wide open world to explore. You got to cook, you got to wander, you got to talk to certain NPCs, and they actually had something valuable for you to talk about or to give you when you talk to said NPCs. Now, we have to consider that this game is a direct sequel to the original Breath of the Wild, so we can likely expect these same mechanics to be a part of the game, but likely expanded in some way. An example of this would be Majora's Mask, because Ocarina of Time just basically reused all of the same NPCs, but kind of gave them a different role to play, if that makes any sense. Also, we might be getting even a larger world than the already large Hyrule that we got to play through in the original, or at least one that's been vastly changed in the 5 in-game years since Breath of the Wild came out. Now, we're probably and hopefully might also be seeing new enemies, new towns, new locations, and most importantly, new characters. That was one of the biggest things that I did not like about the original Breath of the Wild, was there was just the same enemies and it was the same towns. I hopefully they emphasize that change in the sequel. I do want to point out though that one of the biggest parts of Breath of the Wild in the minds of many players, and mine included, were the wide variety of the unique characters that we came across during our travels. Now, we've seen incarnations of the Ritos, the Gerudo, the Gorons, but specifically in Breath of the Wild, I felt like they played a way better role, and I would like to see more of a story emphasis on them, if that's even possible. But yeah, I'm super excited. Now, we're gonna see some changes to the characters in the future, but honestly, there's no telling what Nintendo is going to do, what other characters like them will be coming across over the course of the 5-year gap between the games. Alright, DF fam, so the very last thing I want to talk about in this video for Breath of the Wild 2 is the release date. Now, as I said before, there's been 3 years between Breath of the Wild's first showing at E3 and its launch date on the Nintendo Switch in March of 2017. It seemed pretty far in development, and it still took 3 more years before we actually saw the result of the game, though it did make massive appearances at other E3 showings after that. Now, this has been confirmed that Breath of the Wild 2 was actually intended to be more brand new DLC for the original, before Nintendo realized that there was just way too much information that they wanted to use, and so they made a completely whole new game. And this is where I stand with all DLC. I hate DLC, and I just think it would be better to just take all of those ideas and put them into its own game, and I love that Nintendo is taking that route with the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, with this coming, that likely means that it will be using the same framework, so there's really no guarantee that the game is going to take as long as the original Breath of the Wild to create. Moreover, at the same time, another reason why Breath of the Wild got such a good reception was the sheer amount of content and things to do in the game. Nintendo is obviously going to make sure that the game will have just as much content, if not more, and that may cause the development to take a little bit longer. There is also a deduction that the Legend of Zelda sequel could release as a launch title for the rumored Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo Switch Pro. Nintendo obviously is planning to launch a stronger console, and a Breath of the Wild 2 could be a perfect fit for that. One other thing I would like to point out for the release date is I personally think that the game will take a little bit longer, but not as long as 3 years, simply because of the fact that they are just reusing old models of the game, and it's not going to take as long to recreate the Hyrule, and it's maybe a 2021 release date or maybe a 2020. It would be even better to me. I just want to see this game sooner than later. That's all I have for you guys in this Breath of the Wild 2 update video. Let me know in the comments if you guys are excited, if you learned something in this video that you didn't already know. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to this channel for weekly Zelda videos all about Breath of the Wild 2. Continue to be that light in somebody's life, and be sure to check out another video on the channel. I have a lot of Breath of the Wild 2 videos, top 5s, top 10s, and expect videos every week. I'll see you in another video.